Concealed. Nova. What's going on? I ask Nolan, sitting up and rubbing my eyes after he abruptly sat up on the bed, jolting me out of sleep in the process. Someone's here, he softly says before quietly getting off the bed. What do you mean? What did you hear? I ask, also taking a whispering tone as an unsettling feeling washes over me. I follow him as he sneaks up to the blinds that divide the bedroom from the rest of the apartment, but he signals for me to go back and I do, my heartbeat now accelerating, not sure if what's scaring me more is the fact that I can't feel or hear anything. We didn't switch on the lights, but it's not dark 'cause the outside lights are on and their light also brightens our apartment. Nolan and I hate them, since we don't even need them, but it's not up to us to have them switched off, and we are kind of being selfish 'cause this building is not exclusive to wolves. In fact, I haven't even seen one ever since we started staying here. All our neighbors are humans. I was never one to get easily scared, but after the encounter with the hunters that night, nothing was ever the same. I'm always expecting anything. Nolan slowly opens the blinds, and just then the outside lights flicker, causing him to look back at me before quietly proceeding to the other side. I wrap my arms around myself, not sure if I should transform or not. Since I'm not sure what to expect, I don't want to risk exposing ourselves for nothing. Not when things are starting to come together, but next a chill runs down my spine and I snap my head to the right, thinking I just saw a shadow running past me. My claws involuntarily surface, and just then something hisses on my right, and I snap my head to the right, but the outside lights go out. I call out to Nolan, starting to panic as Carla and I both struggle to see, but he doesn't respond. Instead, I hear a loud groan before a thud like someone's collapsing to the floor. I immediately rush to the front, starting to transform, but something falls from the ceiling and wraps around me before I can even finish my transformation, and it comes to a halt as I fall on my knees, the massive snake tightly securing itself around me, yellow slits staring straight into my eyes. No dash, I try to speak but fail, the hissing sound burning my ears before feeling myself slowly losing consciousness, and a silhouette of a woman is the last thing I'm able to make out as I fall to my side, my lights going out. Nolan the vampire. I groan and my eyes snap open, to find myself hanging upside down with hands tied behind my back using chains that burn my wrists, and just then all the previous events come flooding back. No, I whisper, writhing to try and break or get out of the chains, but I feel weak. I feel something trickling down my rib cage, and I raise my head to see a cut just below my last rib. There's a bucket on the floor, and my blood is going into it, making me panic even more, thinking of Nova, wondering if she's going through the same thing right now. If she's being drained, the thoughts cause me to close my eyes and summon all my strength before trying to break the chains again, but just then, the door opens, and a woman comes inside the room, causing me to bare my fangs at her, feeling a sudden surge of rage. Who are you? What is this place? Where is no Aurora? I roar, almost calling her Nova, but the woman remains unfazed and just drags a chair and sits below me, like she is studying me. Nova, you mean? She says, and the thought of her knowing who she is sends me into a complete panic. If you hurt her, dash. Don't waste your threats on me, honey. I won't hurt your girlfriend. Well, not unless she gives me a reason to. Then what do you want from us? I want nothing from you? Well, I wanted nothing from you, but now I want to know who you are, she says, crossing her leg over the other. My boyfriend is the one who wants something from you. He wants to return your girlfriend that you supposedly kidnapped home and hand you over to the council, she says. And I swear I just heard my non-existent heart rate accelerate, but as I said, now I'm curious, and there can be no handing over until I find out who you are. Nolan the vampire, she continues, getting up before walking up to me and placing her hands on my temples, like she's messaging them first. But I groan in pain, feeling a sharp pain in my head, like it's splitting in half. I have never met anyone I couldn't read. Nolan, reading people is what I do, but I can't break through to you, she says, sounding bitter towards the end, still scorching my head with her hands, causing my groans to become louder before feeling something trickling down my nose and my eyes start to roll to the back of my head. Damn it. I'm killing you, she mutters and lets me go. I feel the blood from my nose running over my eyes before dripping on the floor. Who are you, Nolan? I hear her ask, but I'm feeling dizzy and she sounds from afar. Why can't I see you? Why are you concealed? Who's trying to hide you? She says, running her fingers through my hair, making me feel disgusted. No matter. I will find out, she adds before the door opens, and I look with a blurred vision as she exits with the bucket in her hand, but the door opens again and she walks back in. I almost forgot. I don't want you to bleed out just yet, she mutters, placing her hand on my forehead, causing my whole body to shiver before slowly drifting out of consciousness. When I come to a moment later, I realize my wound has healed and I'm not feeling as weak as I felt before. So I try to break the chains again and they break without even having to use my full strength, surprising me, and I wonder if it's a trap, but I don't care. I need to get to Nova and get us out of here. I lift my upper body and unshackle my ankles before landing with my feet on the ground, but stagger when straightening up, most likely due to the hanging upside down. After cautiously proceeding to the entrance, I hear voices coming from the other side and I can make out it's the woman with a guy. The woman is asking the guy to give her 24 hours, and the guy reluctantly agrees. After that, I hear a door open before hearing it close again, and not long after that, I hear them get into a car and drive away. I stand still and try to listen for more heartbeats, but there's only one, and I can tell by the way it's beating that it's afraid, making me almost sure it's Nova. I take the door off its hinges, careful not to be too loud before following the heartbeat sound. Nova. I open my eyes and slowly raise my head, trying to figure out what's going on, but the image of the snake comes to my mind, how it had me in its coils, and I try to get up, shivering, but realize I'm chained to a chair. I pull on the chains, tears immediately falling from my eyes as the fear overwhelms me, but just then a voice speaks to my right, causing me to snap my head in its direction, and my eyes widen seeing who it is. Va Vance? Why am I here? What is this? Where's No Eli? You can cut the act now. I know that's not his real name, and I know you're not Aurora either. Nova Kane, he says and gets up from the chair, walking over to me, and I feel it. His aura is different. It's powerful. Who is he? Who are you, and what have you done with Nolan? I haven't done anything to him, not yet anyway, he says, looking me in the eye. You really are in love with this vampire, he says, sitting in front of me, and I'm not sure if he's asking or telling me, which means he didn't kidnap you. You ran away with him, didn't you? He continues, but I do not respond. Damn. How did Kellen take that? He asks with an amused look in his eyes, Kellen's name just rolling off of his tongue like they are pals. What are you going to do to us? I'm going to take you home, and as soon as my girlfriend's done with your vampire lover, I'm going to take him to the council, he says, causing my heart rate to rise. What do you mean when she's done with him? What is she doing to him? Please don't hurt him. Please let us go. I can't, Princess Dash. Why not? We are not hurting anyone. Please, we love each other and just want to be together. That's all we want. And I don't doubt that's what you want, but unfortunately, I need you now. You have now become an essential part of my plan, he says, making me look at him confused. What the hell is he talking about? I open my mouth to speak, but he holds up his finger, stopping me, and takes out his phone before looking at it. All will be revealed soon, princess, he says and gets up and walks to the exit, but stops just before getting out. Don't try anything or she'll get really pissed, and trust me, you don't want to piss her off, he says with a warning look in his eyes, and I look around, having an idea of who or what he might be talking about. The thought sends shivers down my spine and I break down and cry, Becoming paralyzed by the fear. I have the worst fear of snakes, and that was no ordinary snake. I keep looking around the room, my body trembling as my cries get louder. And just then, Nolan's scent hits my nose. I freeze before looking up at the door, hoping I'm not losing my mind. And just then the door breaks down and he enters, half naked and barefooted. He rushes over to me, his eyes turning to their natural color, and pulls me into a hug, immediately flooding me with relief. But it's short-lived. The lights in the room flicker, like they did in the apartment, and I hear the familiar hissing sound, causing me to bury myself against him in full-blown panic. Knowing what's coming, he breaks my hands free, but the lights go out and I scream as he gets ripped away from me. The Vampire and the Serpent. Warning: the following chapter contains a bit of violence. Nova. Nolan. I call out to him, hearing him groan while crashing on the other side of the wall, and I desperately pull on the chains, ignoring the burning as I try to unshackle my ankles. But I can't. My strength doesn't work against Silver, it just drains me. Carla is desperately trying to get us to see, but she's also failing. Whenever this thing switches off the lights, our enhanced vision doesn't matter. We are in the dark. Hisses, grunts, and things crashing is all we can hear around us. Please God, help him, give him strength. I make a desperate plea, going out of my mind with fear. I felt the strength of that thing. Nolan doesn't stand a chance against it, especially since he can't even see. Carla tries to get out, causing us to tip the chair over, but she can't, and I start crying louder, calling out for Nolan as a stench of blood greets my nose before hearing the familiar thud, and then nothing. Complete silence. Oh God, no. Please, no. Nolan. Nolan. I call out to him again, and just then the lights come back on, just as I feel the familiar sparks on my arm. Oh, my God. I clasp my trembling hand over my mouth, looking at him covered in blood with wounds on his chest and arms that are starting to heal. I was so scared. I was so scared. Nolan, I confess, still freaking out as he sits the chair upright again before breaking the chains on my ankles and pulling me into a hug. I'm scared of that thing. Nolan, I'm so scared. I continue, trembling in his hold. It's okay, it's dead now, it won't hurt you again, you're all right, it's okay, he repeats, tightening his arms around me, and I break down in his arms. You are okay, my love, I won't let anything hurt you, ever again. He reassures me before pulling back and cupping my face. But we need to get out of here before they come back. We need to get the hell out of this place, he adds, and I nod before placing a kiss on my forehead and pulling me into another hug, but a brief one this time. He helps me up and my eyes widen, looking at the trashed room with blood splatters everywhere, but I gasp, clinging on to him when my eyes land on the biggest snake I've ever seen, lying dead on the ground with its mouth torn open. I can't believe he did it. I can't believe he killed it. Let's get out of here, he whispers, kissing the side of my head, and I wrap my arms around his neck as he picks me up. He asks if I'm ready, and I nod before burying my face in his chest as the morning breeze cuts through my face at the speed he's going. I don't know if I'll ever get used to his speed. Vance. I look around as Astrid waves her hand over the padlock of the back door of the shop. I'm never comfortable whenever we have to break in here. It would be a scandal if I were ever to get caught. But I understand. It needs to be done. Astrid needs the herbs now, and even if she didn't, she has to do this. Cost the stuff she needs might cause people to be suspicious of her. Astrid? I call her, watching her stride between the shelves with a desperate look in her eyes as she looks for what she needs. And she hums in response, why is it so important for you to read this, vampire? I ask her, worried this might turn into an obsession and create a problem. She asked me for 24 hours to break through to him, and I gave it to her. But what happens when the hours are up and she still doesn't know who he is? The question is, why aren't you? This vampire has a human scent and can walk in the sun. Vance, don't you want to know how he's doing that? I do. But my curiosity doesn't outweigh my commitment. Maybe they have evolved and can walk in the sun now. No, she says, shaking her head in disagreement. Someone has concealed his identity. Someone out there doesn't want people knowing who he is. Well, it wouldn't be exactly strange if he were trying to hide. Babe, he's a vampire. No, that's not it. It's more than that. I should still be able to read him if that were it. So asterisk, you think he could be someone important, like a vampire prince? I ask, stopping in front of her, suddenly wanting to know more about this vampire too. If he's a prince or someone important, and there are more of them out there, that could be something worth thinking about and maybe exploring. But Astrid freezes at my words before her eyes widen like she had just figured it out. My God. But how? How is he a vampire? It's impossible, she whispers, making me confused, and I open my mouth to speak, but she cuts me off. There's only one person who can conceal from me, and it must be her. She softly mutters before turning her back to me as she starts desperately scrambling for something on the upper shelves, but I grab her by the shoulders and turn her around to face me, wanting to know I heard her correctly. What do you mean? She's the only one who can conceal from you? Who are you talking about? Are there more like you out there? She told me she was the only one left of her coven. Did you lie to me? I add and see something flash in her eyes before she places her hands on my chest. Listen to me, there's no time for this right now. If I'm right, which I'm almost sure I am, that vampire out there is not a vampire. He's she starts to say, but stops mid-sentence, her eyes widening before blood spews out of her mouth, causing my own eyes to widen. What's wrong? What's happening? I ask, alarmed, cupping her face as she starts choking, and I pull her against me when she staggers. Astrid. Baby. What's happening? What's going on? My voice comes out shaky as panic washes over me and I kneel on the floor before cradling her in my arms. She's never done this before. She tries to speak, grabbing onto my jacket, but more black blood starts coming out and she goes limp in my arms. No. No, no. Astrid. Astrid. Baby. I call her, shaking her, but there's no sign of life in her eyes. This cannot be happening. She can't just die. She can't just leave me like this. She's strong. She's a witch. Her face starts to age and I get up, taking her with as I run out of the shop to my car. Maybe she needs to feed. Maybe she needs mother. I set her on the back seat before sliding into the driver's seat and taking off at full speed. I don't care if that Nova girl's a princess. I don't care about that anymore. I'm not losing Astrid, not like this. I get to my place and lay her on the couch before running down to the basement to get the girl. But the scene I'm confronted with knocks the air out of my lungs, sending me tumbling to my knees. No. They are gone and mother is dead. No. 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 I cry out, crawling towards her. This cannot be happening. She cannot be dead. No one can kill her. It's impossible. I touch her, but it's clear to see. She's really dead. Tears escape my eyes, and I get to my feet and run back to my car. Maybe I can still save Astrid. I can't just give up. I spot a woman running on the sidewalk, not long after pulling out of my driveway, and I sober up as best as I can before sliding down my window next to her. She looks over at me and gives me a soft smile, and I try to return it, telling her I'm looking for directions. I intentionally keep my voice low, so she can come closer, and she does. She leans down to my window and I grab her by her hair and pull her inside. The moment she does, she screams and tries to put up a fight, but she's a mere human. She doesn't stand a chance against me. I knock her out cold the moment I get half of her in and pull the rest of her inside before sliding my window up and making a turn. Asterisk, not giving a shit who saw me. I step on it feeling like I'm going to lose my mind, but luckily I didn't have to go far, so my house comes up in a few minutes. I take her out and head inside. Astrid's still lying lifeless on the couch, so I take a knife and cut her open myself before taking out her heart. Here, baby. Come on, take it please, I beg, pulling her onto my lap, trying to feed her the heart, but she doesn't respond. I put it in her mouth, but she doesn't eat it, and that, I don't know how long it hits me. She's gone. She's really dead. My Astrid's gone. They killed her. I gently lay her on the couch before placing a kiss on her wrinkled forehead, my tears falling on her face, and I get to my feet. My breath getting labored as rage takes over. They are going to pay for this. I'm going to hunt them down, and I'm going to kill that vampire and take his bitch for myself. I'm going to take over her kingdom, and then I'm going to kill everyone she's ever loved, including her. After she bears me in air, they have no idea what they have done. I let out a blood-curdling growl as Clyde takes over and starts tearing the place apart. Nolan Silver. What the fuck? I mutter, sitting up on my bed because of a loud banging on my door. What the hell? I jump off, glancing at the clock as I do to find it's 4:30 a.m. It's not too early, but still, what the hell? I rip the door open to find Cora on the other side, panting. What's wrong? I ask, pulling her inside, and she breaks down in my arms. She's gone, she says with a broken voice, making me confused as to what she's talking about. So I don't say anything but silently rub circles on her back. Cora and I haven't shared a bed since I found out how old she is. The thought of fucking someone 3 times my age makes me cringe. I need time. Feeling she's a bit calm, I lead her over to the bed. Who's gone? I ask, placing my hand on her back, and she looks at me, still blowing her nose. Astrid, my sister, she's dead. Nolan, she's gone, she says, making me confused. I thought they hated each other. That's the whole reason the chick ran away. I'm sorry, Cora, but I thought you didn't get along, I say, but immediately raise my hands, regretting it as she glares at me. She's my sister. It doesn't matter if we didn't get along. She was still part of me. She was family. She spits, fire blazing in her eyes, and I swallow hard. But you wouldn't know anything about that, would you? She adds, getting up, and, for some reason, I feel a tight pain in my chest at her last words. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to sound insensitive. I apologize, catching hold of her arm, causing her to stop and face me, but my eyes widen as blood trickles from her nose before she drops to the ground. We escape. Nolan Silver. Shit. Cora. I call her, following her to the ground before turning her over and feeling for her pulse, and it's there, causing me to let out a sigh of relief. I contemplate calling the doctor for her, but it's not going to look right for her to be in my room so early in the morning. So I just pick her up and place her on the bed. Hopefully, whatever this is, it'll pass and she'll wake up soon. The blood has stopped, I mutter, trying to convince myself that I'm making the right decision. No, fuck. I need the doctor. I rush over to my phone and pick it up, but just then she shoots up with a gasp, her chest heaving up and down, causing me to put down the phone and rush over to her. What happened? Are you all right? I ask, kneeling in front of her, but she asks me for some water. I get up and get it for her, and she gulps the whole bottle down in one go. Do you need more? I ask, since it looks that way, but she shakes her head in no, taking deep breaths, and after a moment she calms down and her breathing evens again. This shit's freaking me out. What was that? I ask again, still standing in front of her. That was a power shift, she mutters with a concerned look in her eyes before suddenly getting on her feet. I need to make a phone call, she mumbles, striding to the door while I just stand there open-mouthed, wondering what she meant by a power shift. I decide to take a shower, but no, fuck it, I can't. I need to know what she meant. Cora is the core of my plan. She's the one keeping everything together, hence anything that affects her power affects me too. So I grab my robe and throw it on while taking long strides to the door. I feel inquisitive eyes on me from the servants I walk past on the way. They have never seen me swaggering in a robe before. It's unking-like, but I don't care. I need reassurance, and I need it now. I don't knock and just push Cora's door open, and she gapes before narrowing her eyes at me, assumably surprised by my presence. I don't remember when the last time I was in her room was. It's considered decent to knock when entering someone's private space. Your Majesty, she mocks after ending the call, shocking me cause I'm forever scolding her for just barging inside my room. Really? Sorry, I didn't know that. I mean, it's not like some people knock when they enter my room. I thought indecency was a thing. I don't knock in your room because you always anger me, but whatever. What are you doing here? Why are you in my room? I want to know what you meant by power shift. Are we in trouble? I ask and she sighs, sitting down, the look in her eyes making me more worried. No, not really, but I'm less strong than I was when she was alive, remember? I told you that every spell, every portion, everything that I create or use magic on, I'm permanently linked to? She asks and I nod, remembering she told me that when she weakens, so is her hold. Well, it's the same for all of us. We don't just call each other sisters because we are from the same coven, but also because we are all linked together. The magic that preserved us bonded us. We are all tied to each other. When one falls, we don't just feel it, but we are weakened by it, she explains. But I'm afraid I'm still not sure if I should worry or not. So I straight up ask her what I want to know. Is the heart going to stop? Is any of it going to affect what we've done? No, it won't. We are good. Ares's body is long rotting by now, so whatever happens won't matter, she says with a low voice, mentioning the love of her life. But I'm relieved. All I wanted to know was if this reduction of power is going to cause us any problems, and now I know it won't. Now I can carry on with my day in peace. So reassured, I get up and head back to my room to get ready for training and then kingly duties. Nova. I hear a car coming and quickly duck behind the trash can and try to get a good look at it, and I sigh, relieved when I see it maintaining its speed with no signs of stopping. Nolan went inside our apartment and told me to wait out here, but he should have returned by now. Since he was supposed to just take our money and get out, we don't have time for anything else. We need to get out of this city now. Vance must have returned by now and seen what we did. He's probably angry and on our trail, coming after us with everything he's got. He knows where we live and he's got a witch with him too. I'm terrified of him catching us. And I didn't even want to come here. I wanted to run and not look back, but Nolan said we'd be fast and we were. But now, I don't know what's going on. It's times like these that I really feel the fact that we can't mind link. After the car disappears from view, I get up and decide to head inside and find out what's happening. I run inside and find the door open, but gasp, seeing Nolan passed out on the floor with blood on his nose. Oh, God. Not now, please. Nolan? I call out to him, kneeling next to him, my heart beating like it's going to fall out of my chest. We cannot afford this right now. Oh God, please, I plead, starting to tremble again with fear. He passes out for a long time after these headaches, and now he has blood too. He never bleeds. Fighting with that snake must have injured him. Tears start pouring from my eyes and blurring my vision as I look around, contemplating dragging him so we can at least hide after making sure he's alive. But I'm panicking too much to think straight. Maybe I can put up a fight, but he'll be vulnerable, making me distracted, and even without that, I don't think I'd win against Vance and his witch. I felt his power. I know he's not just an alpha. I let him go and get to my feet after hearing the sound of a car stopping and run to the window to look, but it's just an old woman. I turn around, wiping my tears with my sleeve, conflicted. But just then Nolan sits up with a gasp, his chest heaving up and down. Looking disoriented, I quickly rush over to him, more tears flowing from my eyes, not believing he's awake. Thank God, I mutter, pulling him into a hug. As he gets to his feet, he hugs me back, but the sound of other cars parking downstairs breaks us out of the hug. Wolves, he mutters, his eyes flashing black. And I can smell them too. I dash to the closet, my knees feeling weak like they're going to give up on me. Did you get it? I ask him, opening the drawer where we keep our money, not even looking at him. Yes, I have it, he replies, and I grab a shirt for him since he's still half naked and throw him his boots, which he catches and puts on. This building doesn't have working elevators, so they will have to use the stairs, which will buy us some time, and they also can't transform or use their wolf speed and risk exposing themselves. Some people are already up, but how are we going to get out? How are we going to get out without having to go through them? I ask, heading to the window, but Nolan catches hold of my hand, causing me to turn and look at him. Let's use the roof, he says, causing my eyes to widen as I follow behind him after he takes my hand. I don't know if I can jump that high. I tell him honestly, I don't know how many stories this building is, but our apartment is on the 5th floor and I know there are still more floors going up. I will carry you, don't worry, he casually says, opening the window for us. Are you sure you can make a jump that high? I ask again, still unsure, and he stops and cups my face. I'm sure. Trust me, okay? I won't let you get hurt, I promise. He reassures me and I nod even though I'm scared shitless. A few months ago, Nolan didn't even know he's a vampire. He didn't know what his capabilities were and still doesn't know the extent of his strength. How does he know he can make this jump? But then again, he did kill that giant snake. I trust you, I tell him, and he smiles at me before placing a kiss on my forehead. We get out of the window and use the fire escape to head to the roof. But Nolan pauses before running inside again with a wait here sign. He comes out with 2 hoodies and puts one on me before pulling the hoodie over my head and doing the same to himself. We get to the top and I tremble even more when he pulls me against him before picking me up. There are trees behind the building leading to a park, so we won't be running out in the open, but once we cross the street, we will have to walk like normal humans. I wish we didn't, cause that will slow us down, but we won't be the only ones slowed down by it. They will too. Nolan makes the jump, and I bury my face in his chest, my eyes squeezed shut, and I gasp, feeling him land. Having not felt what I expected, it didn't feel like a long jump. It felt like he had just jumped from a 1-story building, or something lower. Are you okay? He asks, setting me on my feet. Yes, I'm fine, I stutter, still awestruck, and he pulls me closer to him, his arms wrapping around my shoulder. As we cross the street, we make a run for it. The moment we are out of the view of the building and only stop when we enter the subway. Those wolves have most likely picked up my scent now and on our trail. If only I could hide my scent like Nolan. We have decided to take the train and ride on it until we feel it's safe to get out. It's about to take off when we get there, but luckily we are told we don't have to buy tickets now, we can buy them later. So we enter and finally breathe a sigh of relief when the doors close. I can't believe this happened. I can't believe we are on the run again just when things were starting to come together. Just last night we had a romantic dinner and got our IDs the night before. We had a roof over our heads. After months of braving the cold on the streets, we were finally feeling like normal people again, safe, happy. Did Vance know all along who I was when he gave me the job? Was it all a trap? Who he is? What is he? Is he going to come after us? Is he going to hunt us down for killing his snake? I feel Nolan tightening his arms around me before placing a kiss on the top of my head and resting his chin like he can feel my turmoil. I suppose he can. I can feel his too. I tightly secure my arms around his waist too, burying my face in his chest as tears escape my eyes, not wanting the people around us to see me cry. Defeated. Vance. I don't care how busy you are, Ruadan. Make time. This isn't a request, it's an order. I throw my phone on the half-broken table. After that, Ruadan is a hunter I have working for me 3 years ago when I still partied and drowned my sorrows in booze. I was ambushed by a group of hunters in a parking lot of a club I used to go to. I had no self-control back then and almost exposed myself on several occasions. I don't remember, but I must have done something to make them suspicious of me. I fought them and killed them, but one, their leader, got away. It was a gruesome sight and shook the whole city. I kept waiting for the police to knock on my door, but they never came. It didn't provide me with any relief, though I couldn't sleep, think, or rest. He knew who I was, and the thought of being at his mercy drove me insane. I couldn't live the rest of my life looking over my shoulder and waiting for him to expose me. So I hunted him down, and after weeks of relentless searching, I was finally able to track him down. He was staying on an isolated farm outside the city. I started watching his house first before making my move, but I was shocked by what I found. He was living a double life. He had a wife and 3 kids, and his wife was a werewolf, and so were 2 of his kids. I couldn't believe it. He hunted wolves and mercilessly killed them, and then turned around and went home to one I decided right there that just killing him was not enough. I wanted to break him, to expose him and have him watch while his fellow hunters killed his family. So I waited for him to leave their home and ambushed his wife and kids. They tried to put up a fight, but they were no match for me, and by the time he came home, I had them all tied up and I pounced on him. I told him what I was going to do, and he went on his knees, begging for their pathetic lives. He said he would stop hunting and leave for good or do whatever I wanted, and that gave me an idea. I was a lone wolf at the time. I didn't trust anyone, so I had no one to do my bidding, and I needed someone like that, someone I could use whenever I wanted. It was exhausting doing everything myself, and this guy had a whole lot to lose if he betrayed me, and so our partnership began. He's always on call when I need him, and in return, I throw him a bone once in a while, point him in the right direction, so he can make his kill and remain at the top. I can't afford to have someone take over from him. It's better for me if he remains in charge. It's actually funny that I need him to accompany me to Nova Cos. A few months ago, I pointed him in their direction to hunt. I just didn't tell him the king and his family are wolves. Also, I'm saving the king for last. I sigh, looking at the mess Clyde made when we lost it after losing Astrid. That vampire got away, but not for long. I'm coming, and I'm bringing reinforcements. I pour myself a big glass and sit down in the rubble. I should move to one of my other apartments, but it's hard. It feels like I'm abandoning Astrid, even though she's the one who's gone. This house has all our memories. If I close my eyes and listen hard enough, I can still hear her laughing. I can still feel her touch lingering on me. I will make them suffer for what they did to you, my love. Rose. Rose, what are you doing? I hear my husband's defeated voice behind me, but I don't reply or turn to look at him. I just continue packing, but he wraps his arms around me from behind before turning me around to face him, and I break down and bury my face in his chest, sobbing. I can't go on like this, Duncan. I can't. I have to find her. I have to bring her home, and she will be returned to you. I promise you, Tobias, and I have people looking for them all over. He reassures me, but it doesn't do much for me. He's been saying that for the past few months, and all the while my baby is out. God knows where. I don't know where she lives, or where she sleeps. I don't know what state she's in, or even if she's still alive. Duncan could not report Nova to the council, as he had told her he had to try again to get through to her after Nova left with that vampire. He locked the cell and killed all the men that were in the room. When the whole thing happened, he did it with Travis's help. He's my husband's second in command, and he trusts him with his life. Travis took over from his father, who was Duncan's most trusted friend since childhood. It broke Duncan's heart to have to take all those innocent lives, but he had no choice. How does a father condemn his own child to death? He had to do whatever it took to save her. At least when we find her this time, we'll be prepared. The following morning, he went to the council and reported that a vampire using sorcery pretended to be human and entered our home to kidnap our daughter after murdering our men, and the council believed him since they had no reason not to. Tobias and he have had people looking for them ever since, but nothing has come up so far. Our people are in charge of the search, so when they are found, they will be brought straight here, and we will do whatever it takes to make sure Nova doesn't breathe a word of this mate business to anyone. The king has requested for the vampire to be taken to him when found for questioning, so that will buy us some time before the council intervenes. Ever since Nova left, we haven't been able to sleep, eat, or think properly. This feels like a nightmare, and every day I pray for someone to wake us up. Every time I close my eyes, I'm haunted with dreams where she's found battered and broken, where the vampire turned on her and drained the life out of my baby. We have also tried to find out if there have been cases of wolves who felt the mate bond, but there haven't been any. Nova is the only one who claims to have found her mate. Maybe the council should let people know that this vampire can walk in the sun. I mean, the more eyes we have out there, the better, I tell him, blaming the fact that they have kept that part a secret. Only our search party knows the vampire can walk in the sun, and they have been sworn to secrecy. Everyone else doesn't. You know we can't do that. The council takes orders from the king, and he has clearly stated that he doesn't want that. If the council or any one of us did that, we'd be going against the king's direct order, he says, pulling back from the hug and cupping my face before wiping my tears. He's right, and I understand the king's reasons. but I'm losing my mind with worry every day that passes, and she still hasn't been found. The king decided to keep that part about the vampire to prevent chaos. Humans would have been in danger if wolves knew a vampire was walking around disguised as one of them. We all don't want that, as that could lead to all sorts of complications that could end up with innocent people dying and possibly our discovery. You're right, it's hard. Duncan, I'm scared. I don't want to lose my only child, I tell him, and he hugs me, reassuring me again. He opens his mouth to speak again after pulling back from the hug, but a knock on our door stops him. We turn towards it, sobering up before telling the person to enter. My king, my queen, Travis says with a bow as he enters. There's a man named Vance Lance here. He says he has information about the lady and would like an audience with you, my king, he says. And I don't even wait for my husband to respond as I rush out to this man. Nova. The sound of someone clearing their throat causes us to snap our eyes open before straightening up. Nolan and I have been on the train for 2 days now, and we must have fallen asleep at some point. The guard tells us the train has reached the end of the line. I look around and notice everyone has gotten off except for one middle-aged man who gives me a soft smile as he walks past us, also going out. Nolan reaches into his pocket, asking the guard how much we owe for the ride, but he says we can pay at the gate. When we exit the train, we nod and Nolan takes my hand, and we head out. We step out of the train and see arrows pointing on our right for the entrance, and we also see the man that was getting off walking in that direction, so we follow him. The sign says welcome to Wolcester, so I guess it's the name of this place. We get to the gate, and we also notice it's the entrance to the city. There are about 4 people in front of us, including the man, but we are only a few minutes in the queue when he receives a phone call and steps aside, telling us we can go forward. We get to the counter and are given our bill. We pay and get a receipt and are told to go through the entrance after that. But our eyes widen when we are told we have to swipe our IDs for security purposes to enter. Nolan asks what they mean, and the guy explains to us. He says our IDs will be kept on the system after being run through a criminal database, but we can't do that. We didn't bring our IDs. There was no point, since we couldn't use them and we didn't want to be tempted to. We cannot use our IDs or have them run through things and recorded in any database. We are fugitives. That would be suicide. Vance knows the names we use and has probably put them out there by now. And even if he hasn't, he could be looking for us, and it would be like handing ourselves over to him. We simply couldn't take that risk. The guy sees our hesitation and further explains to us that if we cannot enter the city, we will be put into holding cells until we can be put back on the train and taken back to where we came from. We tried to convince him that we lost our IDs and even offer more money, but that's a big mistake, and we soon regret it as his friendly expression changes to one we cannot decipher before taking out his phone and calling security. We apologize and try to assure him we do not have any ill intentions and we pose no threat to anyone, but he doesn't want to hear it. He tells security to hurry, and Nolan wraps his arms around me as they come rushing in. We could run and maybe find another way to get into the city, since we aren't regular humans, but that would make us fugitives in this place before we even set foot inside. The last thing we need is to attract attention to ourselves, so we do it the human way and let them escort us into the cells. I feel my tears coming as I tighten my hold on Nolan's hoodie. Feeling defeated, I don't know what we're going to do. We cannot go back. The Abbotts. Nova. What are we going to do? We can't go back, I ask Nolan as we sit holding each other inside the cell. We are not going back. I'm going to get us in, he says, causing me to look up at him alarmed. We can't force our way in. How? I don't know yet, but I'm going to figure out a way. I have to, he replies, and I place my head back on his chest, but just then we hear footsteps before the door to the cell rips open, and the guy who called security on us comes to our view. You are free to go. You can enter the city, he says, his expression indifferent, and my eyes widen, surprised. I want to ask him what made him change his mind, but I'm afraid he'll change his mind and lock us back up again if I ask, so we get up and I mutter a thank you as we exit the cell. He follows behind us and opens the gate for us when we get to it. I want to be relieved that he let us in, but I can't help but be skeptical. Why do you think he let us out? I ask Nolan, coming to a stop after entering the gate. Knowing full well he doesn't have the answer, he's just as confused as I am. But I desperately need some reassurance. He stops and turns to face me before cupping my face. What if this is a trap? What if they know who we are and want to trap us inside this city? I add, my anxiety worsening. Why would he lock us up and then turn around and release us a few minutes later without any explanation? Nolan opens his mouth to speak, but a man's voice speaks behind him, causing us to turn to him, and it's the middle-aged man that was on the train with us. Do you have a ride? It's quite a distance to the city, he asks. And Nolan and I look at each other, not sure what to say. Thank you, but we'll be fine, Nolan says. And the man nods before going down the stairs again and disappearing from our view. We also notice that we are blocking the way, so we go down the stairs as well. We come to another small gate at the end, and I swallow hard, suddenly feeling thirsty. Looking at the long stretch of road ahead, there's nothing but road. No sign of any houses nearby. Nothing, but the sun is at least setting, which means Nolan will be able to use his vampire speed soon. Plus, it's not like we have a home to go to anyway. We are sleeping in the street tonight regardless of whether we reach the city or not. I just hope the weather is kind to us, since we haven't even had time to check the place out for potential shelters. Nolan tightens his grip on me, and we start with our walk, but we only walk a short distance before a white SUV pulls up next to us, causing us to pay attention to it. The tinted window slides down to reveal a woman behind the wheel, but someone speaks next to her, causing us to tear our eyes away from her and look at the person in the passenger seat. It's the man from the train again. You won't make it to the city before it gets dark, and this road is known to get treacherous at night. Get in. We'll drop you, he says. And the woman nods, giving us a warm smile. Nolan and I look at each other, the determination of this man causing us to be wary of him. And what does he mean? The road is known to be treacherous? He unlocks the doors before reaching to the back and opening for us. Don't be afraid. It's okay, we won't hurt you, the woman adds. And I internally sigh, still thinking about what the man said about the road, before nodding and pulling Nolan by the arm towards the car. And we get in. We can defend ourselves, but we don't know what we'd be up against. And after Vance's snake, I've become even warier than I was after the hunters. We might be forced to use our super strength, and I don't want us to have to do that. We need to be as human as we possibly can if we are to stand a chance in this city. We can't afford to draw attention to ourselves. The woman hands us bottles of water before starting the drive, like she read my mind, and I gulp it down, also finishing Nolan's after he only takes a small sip before handing it to me. They start a conversation after introducing themselves as Lydia and Jabari Abbott, but it's awkward since we didn't introduce ourselves back. I try to work out strategies in my head between comments, preparing for when they ask us about ourselves, which I'm expecting any moment now. Jabari was right. We were never going to make it to the city before it gets dark. It was a very long drive before we reached the houses, and my heart starts beating faster as the reality of our situation hits me hard, causing me to feel sad, hurt, and afraid. How bad is it going to get for us here? For how long are we going to suffer in this new city before things get better? Will they get better? How many nights are we going to spend on the streets this time? What will we have to do? When is this going to end? Are we going to get discovered straight away, or are we going to be given hope only for it to be snatched away from us again just as we start to believe, just as we start to breathe and close our eyes at night? Are we ever going to stop running? Why did the moon goddess bring us together if she's not going to listen to our prayers, if she's not going to help us? Jabari turns to look at us as the car starts slowing down, like it's getting ready to turn. I'm going to leave my wife at home and then I'll go drop you where you need to go, he says, causing my eyes to widen at his statement. Thank you, but that won't be necessary. You can just leave us here. We'll manage from here. You don't have to trouble yourself, Nolan quickly says. But Jabari cuts him off as the car comes to a stop in front of a house I assume to be their home. It's no trouble at all. Come. It's lobster night. My wife always makes too much. It always goes to waste. Join us for dinner," he continues. And Nolan opens his mouth to speak. But my stomach grumbles at the mention of food, and we can't really say no after that. We reluctantly get out of the car, and I make a quick prayer that this is not a trap. Nolan helps the man with one of his bags and wraps his other arm around my shoulder before kissing the top of my head and whispering it's going to be all right as we follow the man and his wife inside the house. "Thank you, you can just set it over there," he says to Nolan before asking us to follow him to the living area. Their home is not fancy, but it has a warm feel to it, and despite my better judgment, I can't help but start to relax a bit, entertaining the idea that maybe they are just nice people and have no hidden agenda. Nolan, on the other hand, is the opposite. I'm afraid he's looking around and keeping me very close to him. Understandably so, everything leading up to this point has been cause for suspicion, and the fact that they haven't straight up asked us for our names at least is making them seem more suspicious. We take a seat on the couch, and just then the wife comes in and tells us the food is almost done, before proceeding to tell us where the bathrooms are. If we want to freshen up before we eat, freshening up would be nice, but I can't think about that now. I'm still trying to think about what we are going to say when it's time to go. This man doesn't seem to be the type to take no for an answer. How are we going to get him to let us walk out of here on our own? He gets up and exits the room before coming back with 2 beers and a glass of juice. He hands the 1 beer to Nolan, who reluctantly takes it, glancing over at me. He doesn't like beer but doesn't want to seem rude. Jabari hands me the glass of juice before sitting down and starting another conversation. Minutes later, Lydia comes to call us for dinner, and we move to the dining area. He was right. She does make a lot. We start eating, and they keep the conversation going, like they are trying to make us feel comfortable. And I must admit, it works, but that's until my mind drifts back to my family, causing a tight pain in my chest. Tears well in my eyes, and Nolan slips his hand under the table and takes my hand before giving it a reassuring squeeze as I desperately try to hold back my tears. Lydia brings dessert when we are done and refuses to take no for an answer when we tell her we have no space for it. So we end up eating it. "Have you already paid for the place you're going to be staying at?" she suddenly asks, making us confused as to why she's asking, but explains before we can answer. "I'm asking because we have plenty of room here and you are welcome to spend the night, and Jabari can drive you in the morning. It's been a while since we've had visitors over. It's very refreshing," she explains. And I feel Nolan tense up next to me, but I take his hand under the table before he can speak, and he stops. "We will stay." "Thank you," I reply to her. "I know it's risky, but this way, if they don't try anything in the night, we'll have a chance to get Jabari off our backs in the morning. It will be easier for us to refuse his help than right now." We move back to the living area and chat a bit before she shows us to our room for the night. The room is spacious and has its own bathroom, and Lydia brings us fresh towels before bidding us good night. Nova. I wake up to Nolan calling my name and stroking my hair before placing a kiss on my forehead. "It's time to go," he softly says before pecking me on the lips, and I sit up yawning. "Morning," I mutter, reaching for his face, noticing his red eyes as I start to comb his hair back with my fingers. Saddened by the fact that this could have been his last chance at a comfortable sleep, and he couldn't enjoy it. I didn't sleep well last night either. Not because Lydia and Jabari did anything suspicious, but because Nolan was up all night on guard. He couldn't sleep since he doesn't understand how people can let strangers spend a night in their place without even getting their names first. So he stayed up all night waiting for them to attack us, but they didn't. I couldn't explain it or put his mind at ease either. I still can't, but here we are. It's morning and nothing happened to us. We talked about how we are going to get away from Jabari in the morning, and we decided sneaking out before they woke up was our best option. They didn't harm us. We were wrong about them. They are just nice people, and I feel bad about what we are about to do. But we can't exactly tell them we have no place to go. They'll start asking us questions we won't be able to answer. We were already lucky they, for some reason, decided not to ask us who we are. I get up, Blinking a few times from the stinging of my eyes, I'm still very much tired and wish I could sleep a little bit more, but I decide to make the bed before we go. It's the least I can do. We quietly open the door and the house is very quiet and dark, which means they are still sleeping. Nolan takes my hand and we quietly make our way downstairs and to the front door, but a gasp escapes me and I freeze on the spot when the lights suddenly come on. Shit. We turn around to find Lydia looking at us with a sad smile, and just then Jabari comes into our view. "We need to talk," he says, looking at Nolan with a serious expression. And just then the door behind us clicks open and our eyes widen looking at the guy that called security on us at the city's entrance walking in. Safe. Warning, the chapter contains triggers. Nolan the vampire. The guy, who looks to be in his early 20s, presses the door closed with his back and I see what looks to be confusion in his eyes as he quickly looks between me and Jabari before muttering good morning. Walking past us, Lydia's face lights up at the sight of him and he walks up to her and gives her a kiss on the cheek and a hug before walking away and up the stairs like he lives here. Our eyes follow him, but Jabari's voice brings our attention back to him. "That's Kian, our son," he says, walking up to us, causing me to push Nova behind me. Not sure what his intentions are. "I won't hurt her or you. You are safe here. I promise," he says, raising his hands while looking me in the eye as he comes to a stop just a few feet away from me. "I am the one who got Kian to release you. I can tell you are in trouble and I would like to help you if you let me," he continues, causing my frown to deepen. Why does he want to help us when he doesn't even know us? Why go out of his way for us? Why? Why do you want to help us? Why do you care? "Because my wife and I were once in your position," he replies, still holding my gaze, and I scan his eyes for any traces of lies, but find none. There's nothing but sincerity in them, but still, I could be wrong. "Thank you, but we are not in any trouble." "Then why were you trying to leave before we woke up?" "We have somewhere we need to be." "Okay," he nods after a moment of silence. "Honey, please get me my car keys so I can drop them," he says, turning to look at Lydia, but I speak, causing him to look back at me. "That won't be necessary. We'll manage." "What's your name, son?" "Atticus," I quickly reply, my eyes widening at the name, since it's not the one Nova and I decided on last night, but it just popped into my head like someone whispered it to me, and it feels familiar too, like I know it. "Atticus, if you won't accept my help for yourself, then do it for her. She looks to be the same age as Angelica, Kian's sister. She was abducted, and we later found her body lying in a ditch. This is no place to roam around with, no safe place. Please let us help you," he adds, and I notice tears well in his eyes at the mention of his daughter. "I'm sorry for what happened to her." "We will accept your help," Nova says, coming out from behind me to stand next to me. I look at her and she gives my hand a light squeeze before whispering, "It's going to be okay." "Thank you, and I mean it. You are safe here," Jabari says, looking at her with a soft look in his eye. "Since we're all awake, why don't I make everybody breakfast?" Lydia cuts in, the warm smile back on her face, and Jabari turns to her, muttering a thank you. "I'll help you," Nova says before giving me a kiss on the cheek, and I hesitantly let her hand go. I still don't know if these people can be trusted, but if she's willing to give them a chance, then I will too. Plus, I'm not looking forward to having her sleep out in the cold. It hurts. Jabari suggests that we move to the dining area, and we do. We sit down in awkward silence for a moment, but Lydia soon appears with coffee and places it in front of us. "Thank you, honey," Jabari says, looking at her with a loving smile, and I thank her too. He looks at her as she walks away until she disappears from view and turns to me the moment she does. "Thank you for getting us out of the cells and into the city, for opening up your home for us. Thank you for everything," I sincerely tell him, realizing I haven't properly thanked him yet. "You are welcome," He replies and takes a sip of his coffee before placing the cup down again. I want to tell you a story, Atticus, he says. And I nod for him to go ahead. Lydia and I met during a difficult period in my life, a period when I had just lost my first wife. Lydia was a nurse at the hospital she died in when I got the news of her death. I lost it to a point where I exposed a side of me I was supposed to keep a secret. Your wolf side, I state, having a feeling that's what happened. And he nods a yes. My wolf side, I didn't want to say it in case you didn't know about our secret, he says, causing me to look at him surprised. Doesn't he feel that Nova is a wolf too? I open my mouth to speak, but he beats me to it. I know she's one too, but I just wasn't sure if you knew since you're human. Human and wolf relationships are delicate, and sometimes wolves end up not telling their human partners what they are out of fear, he says, and I nod, understanding his point. Lydia saw what I was, and instead of running away, she stood by the door and made sure no one else saw me. I was surprised and figured she must have been one of the few humans that have had encounters with wolves and know about our secret, but still, even so, I couldn't rest knowing she saw me like that. So a few months later, I went back to the hospital to speak to her. I wanted to find out how much she knew and if I had reason to worry. It turned out I was right. She was engaged to a wolf, but he died a year ago. After that, we kept in contact, and 4 years later we were married and living happily. But one rainy Saturday night changed everything. Our world came crashing down and we almost lost everything, including our lives. I used to work during the night, so I'd only come home in the morning, but one Saturday night, I got off in the middle of the night and went home to find my neighbor that I didn't get along with inside my house. He had broken in through our back door and was trying to force himself on my wife. She was covered in blood from trying to fight him off, and, needless to say, I lost it. My eye color changed and my claws surfaced before I could do anything to stop them, and I pounced on him. I beat him badly but did not kill him. A week later, he returned with almost everyone in our neighborhood. He told them I was a beast. I denied it, using his defense against him, since he said he didn't remember how he came inside my house. He said he was drunk and must have mistaken it for his own. The people believed me, since a beast story was hard to believe anyway, and everything was well, or so we thought, until 2 months later, when we were awakened by stones crashing through the window before our house was set alight. The house was surrounded by a mob, gunning for our blood, but I managed to get my family out with the help of a fellow wolf I worked with. He and his wife took us to their house and gave us clothes since we were in our night garments. They also gave us money for a train ticket, and we fled the city in the middle of the night with a 4-year-old Kian and 2-year-old Angelica, not knowing where we were going or what we were going to do. The look I had on my face when the doors of that train finally closed was the same look I saw on your face. I knew you were running from something, and you reminded me of how I felt at the time, how I would have given anything for someone to help me to care. So it didn't matter to me if your situation was the same as mine or not. I decided to be that for you, that one person who cares, and I didn't ask you for your names or where you came from because I knew it didn't matter. If I did, chances were you were never going to tell me anyway, and questions would spook you. He pauses and reaches for my hand, but I retract it. I can't have him touch me. He'd feel how cold I am. I'm sorry. I apologize, trying to think of an excuse for why he can't touch me. Why none of them can't, but he stops me. It's okay. You don't need to explain. I just want you to know that you are safe here. Atticus, you both have found a home here with us, he says. And just then Nova and Lydia enter with breakfast, causing us to change the topic. We settle around the table, and just before we start eating, Kian walks in and joins us. I'm Kian, he says, extending his hand to me, but I don't take it and awkwardly apologize, telling him I can't shake hands, and he nods. I'm Atticus Blackstone, and this is my girlfriend, Athena Boone. I introduce us, and he shakes Nova's hand. What happened back there? It wasn't personal. I was just doing my job, he explains. But I tell him it's okay. There are no hard feelings. Everyone, including Nova, starts chatting while having breakfast, and they keep trying to bring me into the conversation. Nova giving me a knowing smile every time someone does. I don't know much about myself, but I have figured that I'm a man of few words. Nova. I exit the bathroom to find Nolan lying on the bed. He's on top of the covers, his back resting against the headboard. I put on the new pajamas that Lydia gave me and climb next to him when I'm done, resting my head against his chest after sharing a quick kiss. I can't believe we are under a roof right now, that we don't have to worry about where we are going to sleep tomorrow or what I'm going to eat. I can't believe we are safe. So it seems the moon goddess was listening to us after all. Yeah, it seems that way. Jabari says he's going to speak to his boss next week and organize me a job where he works, Nolan says, absent-mindedly caressing my arm. The sparks making me shiver and I snuggle even closer against him. Jabari told us he works in a car manufacturing plant and Lydia is a nurse. That's very nice of him. Yeah, it is. Kian wanted to organize one where he works, but Jabari told him before I could that it wouldn't be a good idea since we ran away and that it's better if I work with him cause it's private where he works, he adds, and I nod. He's right, it'd be risky. I can't believe people like them still exist. Nolan, people who are willing to take in strangers just because they can see they're in trouble and need help. Me too, my love, he says, placing a kiss at the top of my head, and I yawn, feeling tired after having breakfast. We showered and Kian gave Nolan things to change into, since they are the same size, and Lydia gave me brand new clothes that she had kept that belonged to Angelica, their daughter. After that, she and Jabari took us to the mall to get us basic things that we needed and also bought us some clothes we wanted to pay since we had a bit of money, but they didn't let us and put the stuff on their credit. Kian didn't go since he's on the night shift this week. He had to get some sleep before going in again this afternoon. On our way from the mall, they took us on a long drive into the city to show us around. The place is beautiful. It's sad and hard to believe it's so riddled with crime. We should get some sleep, Nolan says after I yawn again and we get under the covers. He pulls me to him before securing his arms around me, and it's not long before I feel sleep coming. I love you, I whisper, my eyes fluttering close. I love you too. Good night, he replies, placing a kiss on the top of my head. Good night. What's wrong? I ask, alarmed, as Nolan abruptly sits up on the bed. Panting, I quickly scramble for the bedside light and put it on to find his chest heaving up and down with an expression I can't decipher. Nolan, what's wrong? I ask again, looking around in the room. Spooked the last time Nolan sat up in the middle of the night. Something was terribly wrong. I saw him again. Nova, I saw my father. Haunting dreams. Nova. What? You saw your father? Yes. I felt him. I didn't see his face, but I felt him. Nova, my eyes were closed, and we had our foreheads leaned together, and I told him I was promising him something. And I told him that I loved him too, that he was everything to me too, he says, getting overwhelmed with emotion. Stuttering, tears welling in his eyes, I get on my knees and straddle him before pulling him into a hug, causing him to cry. This is a good thing. It means you're getting your memory back and I'm happy for you, my love. But how sure are you it's your father you saw? I ask him, confused since he said he didn't see his face. How does he know it's him? He pulls back at that and looks at me. I called him father in the dream and he's not a vampire. Nova, my father is not a vampire. What? Could his father be human? His touch was warm. He was warm. I could hear his heartbeat too. He has a heart. So he could be human? I whisper, but he hears me. No. He has a different scent to him. Different from any I've come across. He's not human, but he's also not a vampire. He doesn't have the icy aura. He's not dead. So he's a wolf? I don't know. Maybe his scent was strong but different, he says, making me furrow my brows, baffled by the revelation. Trying to think of what he could be. There are only humans, vampires and wolves. Cos witches are human, and if his father were a wolf, that would make him a hybrid. But he doesn't have a wolf, which means he's a vampire. Nolan, I call him as realization dawns on me, or remember. You told me all wolves smell the same to you, but I was different? I ask him and he nods. Your father must be human. The only reason he'd smell different from other humans is because he's your father. We all have unique scents to our family members. I tell him and also explain to him why he can't be a wolf, only to see his frown deepen. A witch, he mutters softly. Just as I open my mouth to explain further, a male witch? I have never heard of such. Witches are always women. Their male children are born without the gift of magic. I don't know. Nolan, I've never heard of such, I tell him honestly. When Vance's witch took us, she told me she couldn't read me. She told me my identity was concealed, that someone didn't want people to know who I was, he says, causing my eyes to widen at the revelation. I did notice how Nolan was deep in thought every time he thought I wasn't looking, but I thought it was about our situation. What? Who? Why? I don't know, but I was desperately hoping she gets through to me, and I've been racking my brain since, trying to come up with answers, but the more I tried, the more questions I was left with, and this is the only sense I can make of it. Think about it. My love, I'm a vampire with a human scent who can walk in the sun. I have a ring that hasn't existed for thousands of years. Where did I get it? So you think your father could have made it for you? It would make sense. Vampires and witches were exiled together decades ago, right? What if a witch and a vampire had a child? What if my mother is a vampire and my father is a witch? I mean, you said it yourself, if one of my parents were a wolf, I'd be a hybrid, which I'm not. And in the dream, I promised my father something. What if I was leaving wherever it is that we were hiding and coming here? And then I somehow lost my memory and couldn't return? He says. And if I hadn't experienced everything I've experienced in the past couple of months? His theory would sound crazy, but right now it doesn't. Not after witches, hunters, and finding my mate. I cup his face and look him in the eye. If your full memory hasn't returned by the time this whole thing dies down, I'm going to do everything in my power to help you find your family. We're going to figure this out together, I promise, I tell him, caressing his cheeks with my thumbs. And he leans more into my touch, a lone tear trailing down his cheek. Thank you, he softly says, and I place a kiss on his forehead before wiping his tears away. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be such a mess, he mutters, sobering up. It just felt so real. I could feel everything, all the emotions. I felt it felt more intense than back at the apartment, he says, making me recall how he said he saw his father again. Have you had this dream before? Yeah, back at the apartment when I passed out. It wasn't one of the headaches. I was heading to the door after getting the money from the closet, but felt this weird energy, like something went through me. Then it was like something shifted in my head, and the next thing I was having this dream. It felt like I was awake, like it was a memory rather than a dream, but like now I woke up just as I was about to open my eyes and see him, and I want to see him so bad. That's because it's probably a memory, and I'm sure you'll see him when you're meant to. My love, I know it's frustrating, but don't strain yourself. It won't do you any good. This is already a big step. You at least know his scent now. You wouldn't pass him in the street. You're right. I don't know what I'd do without you, Nova. And you are never going to find out. You're stuck with me, I tell him playfully, poking his nose, causing him to let out a soft chuckle. I love you, and I'll always be here for you, always. No matter what, I add. And he tells me he loves me too, leaning in before connecting our lips in a passionate but tender kiss. Nolan Silver. Aries, Cora softly mutters in the dark, and I look at her to find her sleeping. I was woken up by her tossing and turning. A frown immediately takes over my facial features at the mention of the name, wondering if he's the one who's been haunting her dreams after the power shift thing. Cora hasn't been well. She's been haunted by nightmares, so I allowed her to sleep here again since she kept waking me up in the middle of the night every time she had one. Like she's 5, but we are still not physical. Aries, she mutters again, her voice quavering, and I glance at the clock to see that it's 2 a.m. I decide to wake her, but she sits up before I touch her, panting, sighing. I sit up too and put on the light to find her drenched in sweat. As usual, I open my mouth to speak, but she speaks first. Hugging herself, I saw him. Nolan, I saw Ares. She says with a spooked expression, I know, I heard you call his name, you were dreaming. I tell her, but she shakes her head in no before taking her face in her hands. Muttering more no's, this wasn't a dream. Nolan, it was real, she says, making me look at her confused. What do you mean? I mean, I saw him standing at a crossroads. He was facing away from me. He was half naked and barefooted. His pants were torn. He was even bruised on his back like he'd been through hell. Nolan, his hair was still black, but I could tell it was him. There was a storm coming, and the skies were getting darker and darker, and there was no one else around. It was just me and him, and he was standing a bit further from me. I called out to him, seeing the storm was approaching, but he didn't respond. He didn't even move. He was just rigidly standing there. So I called out to him again, and he still didn't move. But when I called out the third time, his hair started turning silver again. He started to slowly turn to look at me, and I felt this chill run down my spine. His eyes were closed, his head lowered, and something about his appearance made the hair at the back of my neck stand. But I woke up just as he raised his head. Okay, I will admit it was creepy, but it's still a dream, Cora. No, it's not a dream. You don't understand. After my sister died, after the power shift, I saw him and dash. Wait, asterisk, what? What do you mean? What are you talking about? That day when I fainted, I saw the same thing and dash. That's why you fainted? You were having a vision about him and you didn't tell me? You lied to me? I didn't lie to you, dash. You told me you fainted because of the power shift, dash. I did, dash. But you just told me you were having a vision of my dead brother. Which one is it? I don't know, okay? They both happened, she snaps, but I don't miss the uncertainty and fear in her eyes. What does this mean, Cora? Ares is dead, right? He's not coming back. He's dead, right? Of course, he's not coming back. Nolan, his heart is under your bed, remember? Look, I know it was wrong of me not to tell you about the vision, but you were already freaking out about the power shift. I didn't want you to get paranoid, she says, causing me to get off the bed and walk to the window, overlooking the city. The lights in the distance always seem to calm me down. Well, it didn't help much now, did it? 'Cause here I am, paranoid. I don't like the feeling she's giving me. I know it's impossible for him to be alive with his heart removed, but I can't help but freak out over things like these, Cora. It's Ares's heart under that bed, right? What stupid question is that? Of course, it's his heart. Who else's could it be? Which other heart could have done what needed to be done? Then why are you freaking out about this dream? Why do you think it's a vision? What do you think it's trying to tell you? I don't know, Nolan. This was my first time doing this, but I will get to the bottom of it. I will find out what it means. But Ares is dead, Nolan. I killed him myself. I saw the light leave his eyes. He's dead and never coming back.